Folks, in this video, we're going to be talking about Donovan Smith and the struggles that he has had lately with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I talked about this in my review reaction video for the Bucs loss to the San Francisco 49ers, that I was going to make a video like this. I wanted to make and upload this video tonight because I felt like it was a really important topic worth covering. And I will say this. Donovan Smith has not had a very good stretch of games the past 3 games for the Bucs. The media asked Donovan Smith why he had these struggles. He had came out and said, to paraphrase, I'm paraphrasing here, is that he wasn't going to get too deep into it, but he has some personal stuff going on. And this is right after the bye week. Would make sense that, hey, coming, into the bye week, maybe there was something that personal happened. I'm not going to dive too much into that because, quite frankly, it's none of my business. But after the bye week, we've seen Donovan Smith struggle mightily. And looking at the bigger picture of how Donovan Smith has done throughout the entirety of this season, he started off relatively well and he did decent throughout the first half of the season. But after the bye week, things took a sharp downturn about as quickly as they could go. And I want to explain it with this. So Donovan Smith right now as it stands is the most penalized offensive lineman in the entirety of the NFL. Per Pro Football Reference, Donovan Smith has 11 total accepted penalties, okay? Make a note of that. He has the most accepted penalties for all the offensive linemen in the NFL. He has the most holding penalties currently out of all the offensive linemen in the NFL, and he is tied for second with a lot of offensive linemen, admittedly, for the most false start penalties in the entirety of the NFL. You also take a look at some of his other stats like sacks allowed. This is per the Washington Post. Right now, through 11 games, Donovan Smith has allowed 6 total sacks on the year, which is the third most sacks allowed throughout his entire career. He allowed 6.5 in 2018. He allowed 7 in 2020, and there are still a few games left to be played on this season. Another important thing to note in terms of Smith's penalty issues is that a lot of these guys who are tied with him or slightly below him have played in at least 2 more games than Donovan Smith has. A lot of these guys have played 13 games so far this year. Donovan Smith has only played in 11, which again highlights some of the issues that Donovan Smith has had this season. And look, I will say this. It is hard to play left tackle in the NFL, especially whenever you have a right-handed quarterback. You're a blindside blocker. That's a tough position. I would not go as far as to say that Donovan Smith needs to be replaced or he's making too much money. I understand the frustrations with the inconsistencies, and I will talk about that, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's super easy to replace Donovan Smith. Left tackle is a very tough position to replace, and when you have a really, really, really bad left tackle and you know you need a replacement, it is typically very noticeable. So I would not go as far as to say some of those complaints or agree with some of those complaints that have been out there in terms of payment or replacing Donovan Smith or things along those lines, but I do understand the frustration with the inconsistencies, and I want to talk about this. Donovan Smith started off the year, okay, and overall, he was playing pretty well. As I said, he has played in 11 games this year. Throughout the first 8 games that Donovan Smith played in, he only had 5 total penalties, which isn't necessarily great, but it's not necessarily bad either. However, after the bye week, things took a very, very sharp downward turn for the worse. And Donovan Smith has said himself, I'm paraphrasing, because he was asked by the media about this a couple of days ago, what's going on with these recent struggles. Smith had said that he has some personal stuff that he didn't want to get too into in terms of talking about it with media or things along those lines. And I don't know if it's something that happened on the bye week or whatever the situation may be with that. It's none of my business. I'm not going to dive into it. But I will say that after the bye week, there is an incredibly big noticeable difference in Donovan Smith's play. As I said, first 8 games of the year that Donovan Smith played in before the bye week, there was a couple of games that he was out due to that hyperextended elbow. Smith only had 5 penalties on the year, and overall he was playing some decent football. After the bye week, take a listen to these stats. Week 12, Donovan Smith gives up 2 penalties. Week 13, Donovan Smith gives up 2 penalties. Week 14, Donovan Smith gives up 2 penalties. In 3 total games after the bye week, Donovan Smith has committed more accepted penalties in those 3 games that I just mentioned than the entirety of the previous 8 games that he played before the bye week. So that is a pretty noticeable difference there and a pretty noticeable sharp decline. A lot of people have also been very critical about the flag against the New Orleans Saints, where it was a game winning touchdown to Chris Godwin. Donovan Smith got a holding penalty, and that touchdown was negated. Also, in the most recent game versus the San Francisco 49ers, Tom Brady had thrown a 66-yard touchdown to Mike Evans. Really could have done a decent job of setting the momentum earlier on in the game for the offense. It was negated due to a Donovan Smith penalty. The Buccaneers offense was not able to recover after that. And one thing you got to take a look at here, too, is that these have been some tough matchups for Donovan Smith in recent weeks. He was going up against Myles Garrett in week 12. He was going up against a very strong Saints defense in week 13. Then in week 14, he's going up against a very strong San Francisco 49ers defense. So, yeah, there is that sharp decline. Yes, you can say there is some tough matchups in there as well. Those are all contributing factors as to what is going on here. And also, possibly personal issues as well, like what Donovan Smith was talking about, that may have occurred during the bye week if we were to look at, just the data based on what is presented before the bye week versus after the bye week. Donovan Smith had 5 total penalties accepted before the bye week. As soon as the bye week ends, he's got 6 in the next 3 games, eclipsing the entirety of what he did before the bye week in just 3 games versus 8 games. So, yeah, Donovan Smith has struggled recently, and it is notable. It is worth talking about. Has he had a terrible season all year? No, I would not say that. There's definitely been a lot of change along the offensive line, a lot of different types of injuries. Smith himself had sustained an injury with that hyperextended elbow. Is that elbow fully healthy? We don't know at the end of the day. So there are a lot of contributing factors to this. I'm not saying this as an excuse. I'm just trying to break it down and give reasons for why Donovan Smith may be struggling right now, and saying that this isn't a situation that is impossible to rebound from. We've seen Donovan Smith play well in the past. He has had the capacity to do so, but he has had a really bad set of games lately for the Bucs and has struggled mightily, and I thought that that was something worth pointing out, as he is now the most penalized offensive lineman in the entirety of the NFL, especially given how he has struggled the past 3 weeks. What are you guys' thoughts on Donovan Smith? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.